of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course Mmpc 011 titled Social Processes and Behavioral Issues for MBA Program. Presenting Block 2 titled Intrapersonal Processes. Unit 7 Motivation Part 1.
Objectives. After studying this unit, you should be able to 1. Explain the concept of motivation. 2. Discuss the concepts related to employees' motivation. And 3. Describe the techniques that can be used for motivating employees. Introduction. We all know that motivation drives a person to achieve beyond normal. As such, an environment can also make individuals think, what motivates people? How can I motivate others? By asking about the source of motivation, one is looking for an understanding or explanation of what is known psychologically about the tendency of people to expand their energies. By asking how to motivate others, a manager is assuming A. that he or she can affect the behavior of others, and B. that his or her effect can override the other's behavior. Motivation as a factor influencing human behavior became an area of increasing importance after the Second World War to fulfill the imperative need of increased production. Motivation, concerned with all important human inputs, assumes crucial importance when a system is confronted with challenges of development or a crisis situation. What is motivation? Who is responsible for motivation, individual or management? The answers to these questions are not simple. While some see motivation as being contained within an individual, others view it as arising from sources outside the individual. As such, these views cannot be considered independent of each other, especially in the organizational context. Motivation in an organization encompasses forces both within and external to the individual member. Let us now learn how the concept of motivation evolved. Motivation, evolution of the concept. Literally, motivation means incitement or inducement to act or move. In an industrial setting, it means to make a subordinate act in a desired manner. Obviously, desired implies the interests of the organization as well as the employee. It implies not only that the subordinate should act in a disciplined manner, but also that he or she should act in an efficient and productive manner. To motivate, therefore, is to persuade, stimulate, even compel an employee to act in a manner which may help in attaining organizational objectives. This may be a limited view. Motivation really comprises all the internal urges which are described as desires, wishes, drives, etc., which make a person strive for doing a thing. Motivation is what makes people do things. Motivation may not be the same as incentive. In incentives, we generally expect greater output with the same inputs, while motivation involves some more inputs considered necessary for changing the work, attitude, and behavior. As such, financial incentives may not motivate all, particularly those employees whose physical needs are already satisfied. To motivate means really to produce a goal-oriented behavior, which may not be possible by mere provision of incentives with the object of higher earnings and higher output. The importance of motivation is too obvious. Survival and growth of an undertaking depends considerably on the performance of its employees, which in turn depends on their ability and will to work. The ability is determined by the quality of education, training, and experience that one has acquired. Even if there is any deficiency in the same, it can be made good by arranging further training and developing facilities for them. The willingness to work involves change in behavior and attitude of a person towards work or motivating him or her to work in a desired manner and give better performance. Motivated workforce is essential for efficient working, optimum productivity, and attaining organizational objectives. The motivation in personnel management follows planning and organizing. Any managerial decision becomes meaningful if it can be converted into an effective action through motivation of subordinates. In fact, every aspect of personnel function is pervasively endowed with motivational attributes. Therefore, a successful personnel manager incorporates the principles and concept of motivation into his or her own philosophy of management. By applying them, he or she can influence others in attaining a better or positive motivation. You now know that motivating people is difficult, but it is very challenging for changing human behavior. The study of motivation began to attract attention in the early part of the 19th century. However, with the development of theories of learning, it came to occupy a central position. The application of psychology in education and industry led us to realize that motivation as a process is highly significant in achieving excellence. However, in spite of the relevance and popularity of motivation, its applicability was not well understood till 1953, when McClelland extended its applicability in industry, education, and a wide range of areas and contexts. He identified achievement motive and developed a general theory of motivation and method of measuring the same. According to him, motivation consists of the learned anticipation of a goal as arousing positive or negative emotional reaction. His ideas highlighted an ever-increasing significance of the entrepreneurial roles in society vis-a-vis organization, especially so in economic development. Another concept of motivation is in the form of 5 human needs placed in hierarchical order: psychological, safety or security, social, self-esteem, and self-actualization. This concept is based on assumption of internal motivation, the needs, wants, and desires which exist within an individual and influence him or her by determining his or her thoughts. These in turn determine the ultimate behavior in a particular situation. The underlying assumption here is that individual motivation depends on the urgency and potency of the needs. As the lower order needs are satisfied, the higher order needs takes precedence over them. Another way of looking at motivation is in terms of the internal dynamics of an individual vis-a-vis the power of contextual factors like money, work conditions, etc. An entirely different hypothesis of motivation is based on the nature of man, that is, being lazy, idle, and indolent or creative, open-minded and energetic. An idler is averse to any effort and would like to avoid any kind of responsibility. Idlers prefer being directed and avoid being independent decision makers. They only work under direct control and threat of punishment. For a creative person, the work is as pleasant and natural as play. Responsibility is a welcome concept, and such people seek self-regulatory behavior. Motivation is also influenced by an organization and its style of management. Management styles can be depicted to be in a continuum. This concept is based on the effectiveness of management in ensuring participation of subordinates in decision-making and action orientation. This theory of motivation is action-oriented and projects the organization as a task-oriented, highly structured, and authoritarian establishment on one hand, and completely democratic, people-oriented, and emphasizing a participative management style on the other extreme. These are interspersed with 2 immediate stages, where definitive relations between superior and subordinates have varying trust and confidence. In the late 1960s and thereafter, the concept of motivation expanded its horizon and in that process lost some of its sharp focus on human needs, but in no way lost the significance for organizations and their members. The emphasis shifted from study of motivational notions to such fields as job enrichment, quality of work, meaning of work, organizational climate, and to a very broad spectrum of organizational culture. There has been a paradigm shift in understanding the relevance and contribution of motivation vis-a-vis organizations. The enmeshing of individual identity with his or her motivation is being given a wider but well-defined boundaries of social, or organizational context. This may have caused some haziness in understanding and application of the concept. A psychologist likes to put a premium on the individual, whereas an organizational strategist would like to focus on the collectiveness. And the debate continues. Since each organization is unique in its boundaries and contextual parameters, so is an individual. The concept of motivation and its complexities help us understand and create a unique relationship between the two. Some common assumptions about motivation. 1. It is commonly said that it is the subordinates or non-supervisory staff in an organization who needs to be motivated. The fact, however, is that everyone in an organization needs to be motivated. First, the supervisory and managerial staff need it so that they will be able to motivate their subordinates. 2. Motivation and higher productivity go together. This may be true by and large, but individual motivation at the workplace or group motivation, as in the case of trade unions, may not have such a correlation with productivity. 3. All motivational techniques are designed and applied by the personnel and managers and other line executives who directly control and take work from those under them. In fact, the latter are more concerned as it is their primary function to see the persons under them work most efficiently. As they are in closer touch with their workers, they can understand their problems better and also know their needs. If necessary, they can take the advice of the personnel or industrial psychologist or any other consultant. 4. Standard theories of motivation developed by psychologists will also apply to the industrial situation with varying degrees of dependability. Types of motivation. In an industrial setup, motivation may be intrinsic as well as extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is related to the job one is doing. When a skilled operative performs a job well, he or she derives a sense of satisfaction. This is intrinsic motivation, which satisfies the creative instinct of an individual. Extrinsic motivation is external to the job or task. For example, financial incentives for doing a job well or giving higher production may motivate the workers. Other external motivators are praise from the supervisor for good work, recognition of good performance by the company in the form of public citation and award, admiration of fellow workers, and improved working conditions and other facilities. Determinants of motivation. The traditional approach that a person could be made to work by monetary rewards has been gradually giving place to a more complete pluralistic explanation, which recognizes that an individual works to fulfill a variety of needs. It is recognized that the motivation is the result of the following three groups of factors. 1. Individuals. To know what can motivate employees, we must know their aims, objectives, and values. Human needs are both numerous and complex, and often it is difficult to identify them. Motivation is not an easily observed phenomenon. We have to first observe individual action and behavior at work and interpret the same in terms of the underlying motivation. Our interpretation may not necessarily reveal the individual's true motivation, as some of the human needs may be difficult to describe and identify. 2. Organizational components. Organizational structure, technological system, physical facilities which constitute internal environment of an organization affect motivation. Some machines are more interesting to work with than others, or certain kinds of work may be boring to persons. Job-connected experience of a worker determines motivation. 3. External or exogenous variables. A worker's life outside the factory is also an important factor affecting his motivation or willingness to work inside the factory. Life at work and life outside the work are bound together. Troubles and joys of off-job life cannot be put aside when reporting for work. A strong motivational role is also played by culture, customs, and norms, images and attributes conferred by the society on particular jobs. An individual, for example, may find that his or her work commands a substantial degree of respect and social acceptance quite apart from holding a position in a particular organization, and so he or she may be more willing or motivated to perform such a work. Characteristics of motivation. Some important characteristics of motivation which follow from the discussion of its detriments are: 1. Individuals differ in their motivation. There is no single economic drive which determines behavior. As the desires and goals of individuals differ, so do their motivations. One may do a job because it is remunerative, another may do it because it gives a sense of achievement or enables him or her to serve a cause which is dear to him or her. 2. Motivation is highly situational. A person may work very well in one organization and poorly in another in the same position or type of the job. The performance may vary with working conditions and type of supervision. 3. Motivation change. Motivation of each individual changes from time to time, even if he or she may continue to behave in the same way. For example, a temporary worker may produce more in the beginning to become permanent. After being made permanent, he or she may continue to produce more to gain promotion, and so on. 4. Motivation is expressed differently. Needs and the way in which they are translated into action may vary considerably from one individual to another. Different persons may also react differently to successful or unsuccessful fulfillment of their needs. One may feel frustrated if his or her needs has not been met, but the other may be motivated by his or her failure and redouble his or her effort to get his or her need met. Again, one individual with strong security need may avoid accepting responsibility for fear of failure and dismissal, and the other with similar need may seek out responsibility for a fear of being fired for low performance. 5. Motivation is complex. It is difficult to explain and predict the behavior of workers. Use of one motivational device may not produce the desired result if it brings an opposing motive into play. In a factory, when a blue-green device was introduced to reduce eye strain, the output of male workers increased while that of female workers decreased. It was found that the latter disliked this change as the new type of light falling on them made them look simply ghastly in appearance. Motivation and morale. These two expressions are not synonyms or interchangeable, but the fact remains that a motivated group of workers generally has a high degree of morale. Morale is a composite attitude of various individuals employed by a company. It is generated by the group and may be considered as a byproduct of the group. It is not an average of individual attitudes. Morale has been defined in a number of ways. It can be seen as an attitude of satisfaction with the desire to continue in and willingness to strive for the goals of a particular group or organization. It has also been defined as the possession of feeling of being accepted by and the belonging to a group of employees through adherence to a common goal and confidence in the desirability of these goals. Put simply, morale is a group concept, while motivation is largely an individual concept. Morale is the summation of feeling of employees as a group towards various aspects of their work job, the company, working conditions, fellow workers, supervisors, and so on. If the attitude of employees towards all these aspects is more positive than negative, the morale of the group can be said to be high. Otherwise, it is low. Studies in India show that high morale among workers may not be an indication of high productivity. Higher morale of union members may enable them to continue to strike and fight out the issue. Important components and determinants of morale are A. A feeling of togetherness. B. Need for a clear goal or objective to be achieved. C. Expectation of success towards the attainment of the goal. D. Feeling of each member within the group that he or she has a meaningful task to perform for achieving the goal and that he or she also matters, whatever may be the job assigned to him or her. And E. Supportive and stimulative leadership. All these detriments of morale are equivalent to that of job satisfaction, which is a precursor of morale. However, the two differ as the term job satisfaction is used for individual and morale for groups. An enlightened management should be conscious of the need for assessing the morale of its employees by opinion polls or attitude surveys from time to time. Low morale can be caused by factors beyond the control of the organization. However, workers' morale can be boosted up by A. better methods of working in which workers or their representatives may have a bigger say. B. Utilization of incentive schemes with the widest possible coverage. And C. Consultative and participative style of management. What demotivates or demoralizes the employees? There are some management practices which affect the morale and motivation or willingness of employees to give their best or work in the desired manner. Some of these practices are A. Under-assignment. If a skilled man or woman is assigned an unskilled or routine job, it may cause frustration or job dissatisfaction and thus demotivation. B. Over-assignment. If a good worker is overloaded to the point where he or she feels that he or she is being exploited, this may make him or her lose interest in work. In big organizations, it is a rather common practice to overload good workers as others cannot be trusted or depended upon. C. Buckmastership. Superiors or leaders avoiding hard work themselves and passing on the same to their subordinates and then finding fault with them may erode employee motivation. D. Coercive types of control or supervision which may give a worker a feeling that he or she is not being trusted may also demotivate him or her or erode him or her interest in the work. Some control no doubt is essential, but if it is too coercive resulting in frequent warnings or punishments or withdrawal of facilities to chasten the employee, morale and motivation of the employees are bound to go down. E. Manipulative behavior of the management, which may take the form of divide and rule policy or tactics, making promises which are not fulfilled, encouraging groupism, and appealing to the patriotic sense in times of national crisis may also have a demotivating effect. When employees perceive such behavior, they lose interest in work.
We were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code Mmpc 011, titled Social Processes and Behavioral Issues. Course Coordinator Professor Srilata. Voiceover by Renuka. Edited by Ashok Sharma. Program assisted by Tarannum Jaha. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.